Happy Tuesday night, guys, and welcome to Deep in the Plus. If you've been with us and you're hanging on, we appreciate you. I'm Rob Whiteside, and with me tonight is my good friend Patrick Hackett. Patrick, thank you for hanging out.
Very excited to be here.
I'm excited actually that you're here. This is really good stuff.
Yeah.
So we wanted to talk about John Carter of Mars. When we first sat down to do it, and I'm saying John Carter of Mars, and I know you will correct me in a minute about that, but when we sat down to do John Carter, man, you were all set. You had your drink, you were ready to go, and you pulled up Disney Plus, and you're like, Rob, it's not on Disney Plus. What's going on?
We had to call an audible to the other Mars movie, which, my God, that is one of the worst films ever made.
That was a huge mistake. Yeah, absolutely.
That was a huge mistake.
So we had a conversation about John Carter and about how hard this movie was to get made. Obviously, Andrew Stanton was the director. He was the director of some great Pixar movies, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to do this live action thing." And Disney was like, "We trust you. We're going to throw some money at you. We're going to do this movie." They announced it at D23 2009. When I think it was 2009, might have been 2011. Which one was it?
And I do believe that was 2000. No, it had a short production, so I think it was probably 2011.
Okay, so give me some of the background that you've been holding on to for just this occasion.
So a lot of what is quote unquote wrong with this movie can be pushed back to Andrew Stanton, as he was given carte blanche. He was given a ton of control. This was his first live action movie, and he got a $250 million budget. He controlled basically everything, from how the trailers were cut to the music that was in it. It ultimately led to a couple high-ranking executives leaving the Walt Disney Company. If you really want a good understanding of this, I suggest the book by Michael D. Sellers, John Carter and the Gods of Hollywood. You can pick it up for $3 on your Kindle. It's a really quick, easy read. And that book, actually having Michael D. Sellers on what preceded News Tonight, which was Sierra Late, which I co-hosted with Tom, we had him on as a guest, and he was phenomenal. And it really got me hooked on the movie. The book, not so much, but this is a film that has a rich history in Hollywood. It was supposed to be the first feature-length animation. It would have beaten Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs to the cinema. It's unbelievable that it started way back then. The people who did a lot of the Looney Tunes were also going to produce John Carter of Mars. There have been so many people attached to direct this. Robert Rodriguez was attached at one time. John McTiernan with Tom Cruise to star in that point in time. This and Tarzan, the two Edgar Rice Burroughs properties, are really where everything in the hero genre comes from. Everything that you see in a superhero, or that you see in a heroine even, because Dejah Thoris obviously is a huge influence on Wonder Woman and other characters. It all comes back to John Carter, and this film had the unfortunate fate to come after all those movies were already popular. So a lot of people thought that this film was ripping off those, when it was really those films borrowing from the books. Okay,
I'm down. So here's the thing that I ran into with this movie is that what's up?
No, I'm ready. Talk to me.
Okay, is that it was hard for me to get my wife on board with this movie, because she was like, I don't really know that there's anything in this for me, and so she didn't want to watch it. I went and saw it by myself, loved it. Even when it came to home video, she still had no interest. And I think it was because it was a very confusing target, right? So it was trying to tell this story. And if you didn't know the story, if you didn't know about it, it's just big letters that says John Carter. I feel like the marketing really missed it here.
Yeah, it really missed and that's part of what was Andrew Stanton and his kind of holding everything, but it's also some of the executives, Disney, not giving it enough money and not really realize who they were marketing this movie to. This is a family film. This is something that everybody can get behind. It's a PG-13 Disney release, so the only other ones at that time were Prince of Persia and Pirates of the Caribbean, The Black Pearl. So, it kind of split in the difference there at that time, but it's a family movie that has something for everyone in it, and it was just marketed really wrong, and you can see it taking a resurgence in streaming. It was very popular when it hit Netflix, and now that it's on Disney Plus, people have been watching it. Just checking out the IMDb page, it has a 77% growth in the past couple weeks. So
wow,
people are talking about this film 8 years later.
Well, I mean, we're talking about it right now.
Yeah,
So
I think
go ahead.
I think it's a great film to talk about because people know it, but they haven't seen it.
Yeah. I'm also just obsessed with exactly how not crisp my picture is here, and it's driving me bananas. So I feel like I'm in some weird...
some other terrible film, Pixels.
So anyway, and it's a shame because I was really excited to talk about this movie. I'm having some technical difficulties, so I apologize for that. But we'll carry on because I mean, to me, it's one of those really missed gems. Like, this is kind of what Deep in the Plus is all about for me, is to go back into these movies that I feel like people have not seen for one reason or another. You missed it when it came out, whether that's, I mean, we've talked about others, like you named Prince of Persia. Like, I feel like Prince of Persia was a good movie. I feel like it, again, kind of missed the mark of who it was talking to because it was based on a video game. And so if you weren't into that, then it had Jake Gyllenhaal in it, and that would be cool. But if you weren't into Jake Gyllenhaal, then you didn't go see that movie. I think both of them really, this and Prince of Persia, were great adventure movies, and I enjoyed both of them. Yeah. So to me, I just feel like this is a movie that a lot of people missed out on along the way. I feel like Lone Ranger is kind of that. Like, I think Lone Ranger got just really panned.
Yeah, but Lone Ranger
deserves it. You don't like Lone Ranger.
Lone Ranger is
come on.
Terrible. Lone Ranger is terrible. I thought I was going to have a similar affinity for Lone Ranger. It is one of the worst. It's not as bad as Mars Needs Moms, so I'll give it that. And Armie Hammer is like a genuine movie star, and I think Taylor Kitsch is too. I just think that sometimes people don't see it right away and they don't get the right projects. We were talking in the chat beforehand about Friday Night Lights and how Kitsch is just kind of stands out in that.
Yeah. So let's talk about the movie itself. So it opens up and it opens up on Mars. And no, so we
open in the Old West.
I thought it opened on Mars with them giving the weapon.
No.
Okay.
No, we open in the Old West.
Well, okay. I'll take your word on that again as the John Carter expert, but I thought that was the case. But anyway, it does jump back and forth a little bit between Mars and the Old West.
I think
so we're talking about
a big problem in the movie. Yeah. I think that's a big problem.
Yeah, so timing-wise, it is really kind of confusing as to what's going on because they're trying to tell you a whole bunch of stories through exposition, and I mean, not even exposition. They're just trying to tell you a whole bunch of stories at once. We're learning about John Carter. We're learning about he's dead. Well, so here's his nephew coming to, he sent his nephew a telegram. Hey, come out here. When he comes out, he finds out his uncle's dead. The lawyer reads him all this stuff, and he starts down reading about his uncle and what led him to this moment. And then we start to experience the story.
Yeah. It's a lot of what was being done at the time in 2012. There was a lot of these bookending movies starting at the end and kind of interspersing. And I think it was a crutch of storytelling at that point in time. I feel like that is actually one of the real criticisms of this film that I think is totally accurate is that the time jumps. We're confused about it right now, and I just watched it last night.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe, like I said, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I thought that it opened up. And here's the other thing I have a problem with in this movie. And I have a problem with a lot of fantasy movies about that. Because you know this movie and you know the story, you know the names. I don't know the names, even though they say them, because it's like, they're hard to follow. And so like, I'm like, oh, you know, the guy who wanted to marry the princess and he got, you know, that weapon from the dudes. Like, I mean, that's like me trying, because the names are so hard. And a lot of times when you read something, because this started out as a work of fiction, you read something and you get in your head like what that sounds like. And then in the movie, they're like, nah, it sounds like this. So I like, that's a troubling thing for me. I know John, like, see, that's the thing is like, they come up with the simplest, easiest name, John. Okay, cool. John Carter, you know, from Virginia. So, you know, he's telling this story about how, you know, he wants to, you know, he's leaving the story for his nephew, which, why did it have to be Edgar Rice Burroughs was his nephew? Why was that important in the story?
It's actually in the books as well.
Really?
Yeah. So it's in the books as well, and it just seems to be the author shouting himself out.
I mean, I guess that's just kind of weird to me. It's, but I mean, okay, sure. So knowing that it's Edgar Rice Burroughs and he's leaving this story for his nephew and he's telling him about how he was, you know, it was after the Civil War. You don't know yet the struggles that he's gone through at this point. They start to hint around at it as they go through with his wife and his kid. You don't really know that full effect early in the movie, right?
And I think that would have served better if you played that earlier. I think that would have really cemented some of the decisions that he made. Honestly, I've seen a fan edit of this, and I think that the fan did a really good job. I think it could have used just a little run through one or two more times before it could have got to a polished project. Like, I think it's still one of my favorite movies, but I don't think it's a good movie, if you know what I mean. Like, it's a good popcorn flick, but it's not, you know, art. It's not like we're looking at Citizen Kane here.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Well, so they you know, he's going through and they cut to the scene where he's in the old West, like it's years before. He's trying to pan for gold and find his fortune, and he goes into this bar, and then the army finds him and takes him hostage, and like the leader played by Bryan Cranston, which is awesome because he's got this full head of hair, and it's just like, it's, you know, he did a great job in such a small role too. And I'm trying to remember.
He's so good at roles like that. He's just so good in little roles. He plays in a Disney Channel original movie. He plays like a scummy uncle, and he's fantastic in it.
Yeah, so I love seeing him. But this scene where they're trying to tell, they've locked him up, or they bring him in and they're trying to tell him that they need him to serve again, and he is trying to escape the entire time. This to me is the single best, funniest moment of this entire movie.
I totally agree. That the bar scene and then the scenes with him in the jail, they're played perfectly. The physical comedy, the action is just, it's right there, and then it loses itself somewhere.
So he's running away from I guess from the military, and he runs into Native Americans. There's a skirmish that's not his fault, and it starts me down this, like, he's such a tragic hero. He's got so much tragedy on him constantly, and even at this point, you still aren't sure what happened with his wife and daughter. But there's so much tragedy, and just like him, all he wants to do is like pan for gold, and they're like, "No, we're going to bring you back in." And then he starts to run away, and they're like, "Oh, we've got you between us and the Native Americans." And then he takes off, and now he's got to take care of this guy. Bryan Cranston's character gets shot. He brings him up into a mountain to get away from the natives. They see this like image. They're afraid. They run away. He goes into a cave, and in the cave, he finds this mystical person who he fights and gets hold of this medallion See, that's the thing again, the names. I mean, you know, it's really easy. If you were talking about the Brady Bunch, I got you. Like, you know, Greg, Marsha, we're going down. But when you're talking about this movie, there's just like these names. So what is it? He's a Thurn?
He's a Thurn. They're kind of. It feels like they're like these, almost the Watcher in Marvel. They're kind of, but more active than the Watcher. They're kind of interfering, but observing to make history go on the path that they want it to.
Yeah. So he grabs this medallion that the guy has basically started. It's like activation, and he grabs it,
Yep.
and it takes him to a planet, and he doesn't know where he is. Obviously, you know, we have a spoiler in the book that it's called Princess of Mars. You know,
Yeah. And that for a long time in the advertising, it was John Carter of Mars.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, even the logo at the very end is that JCM logo within the movie.
Cool
so,
logo.
like, they still kept that. Yeah, it was a very cool logo. That'll be your tattoo. Do you have that somewhere? Do you have that on your arm?
No, it's just Figment, you know.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, maybe it's time, Carter, dude. Maybe it's time to show your love for John Carter on that other arm. So when he's there, he's laying in this desert, and it could just be a desert. It could be any desert, because he was kind of in the desert when he left
in Arizona.
And so so then he's like, he tries to get up and try to figure out where he is, and now he's got a problem with gravity. This one again, pretty cool scene, I think. I mean, as he's trying to come to grips with it.
And these are all practical stunts, which I was amazed to find out. They pulled poor Taylor Kitsch. I mean, he's not poor. He's probably very wealthy. But they pulled him at 80 miles per hour to do these jumps. And he said after that he wasn't really a fan of it. But it was great to see that they did a lot of practical stunts in this. Of course, there's a ton of CGI. But, yeah, the practical stunts look great.
Yeah. So he gets out, he sees some people coming, which I guess he thinks are people. He runs for the hills, and that's when Willem Dafoe's character, who is named, what's his name?
He's a you got to make me say all these names. I
am, because I don't have them.
I know this is definitely a problem. He's a Thark, so we have Thurns and Tharks. And he is Tars Tarkas.
Sure he is. Of course he is. So you know, he shows up, and he sees this guy jumping, and he's like, this guy, I got to get me one of these. This guy can jump. And then he takes him. He tells all his men, he's like, back off. He's speaking Martian. There are subtitles, so people who have not seen this movie, be prepared for some subtitles.
There are subtitles, yes.
Yeah. And so he drops all his weapons. He comes up to him. He tries to explain who he is, and then he tries to get John Carter's name. And, of course, in a almost dad joke situation of being John Carter from Virginia, all the guy gets from him is Virginia, but he says it in this weird way. So he's like, Virginia. And that becomes his name for the rest of the movie.
It was great. It's not his name for the rest of the movie. He does get a Thark name as well. So, you know, but
it's the last one I can pronounce.
Yeah. So they call him Virginia. I think it's great. I think that's another good scene. We're stacking up good scenes here.
But you still say it's no Citizen Kane.
It's definitely not Citizen Kane.
Okay, so they meet. He wants Virginia to jump again because he thinks it's pretty cool. And so once John Carter realizes that's what he wants, and by the way, John Carter never refers to himself, I don't think, as John. It's always John Carter. Like he's going to get confused on Mars with some other John. Is that the problem?
I think he's just very, very formal. He's always John Carter of Mars, and sometimes he's Captain John Carter of Mars. He throws his military title, although I'm pretty sure he had to be court-martialed when he went back home. They kind of just graze over that. He's dead, I guess, when he gets back home. Spoilers.
Did you feel like that sometimes Taylor reached into his inner John Wayne with some of the, like, you know, like Captain John Carter of Virginia, like,
yeah, Absolutely. He doesn't give a terrible performance, but I think his performance out of everybody there is probably the weakest. I think he would have done well with probably better direction. It has to be hard for Andrew Stanton to go from animation to a live action film of this scale and this huge tentpole release. He's actually gone back and has been doing TV episodes. He did a couple of Stranger Things. He did an episode of Better Call Saul. He's really kind of reinventing himself. I think if he tried to make this movie now, he would make some better decisions. I think he would get a better performance out of Taylor Kitsch.
Yeah. So they take him back to the village, and they decide to show. He decides to show his new pet project off to the rest of the villagers, and he wants Virginia to jump. And so then there becomes some kind of rivalry between. Well, I'm gonna just use our actors' names: Willem Dafoe,
Yes.
and then who I later found out to be Thomas Hayden Church.
Yeah. So all the Spider-Man villains in one place.
Is that what unites this team? I didn't realize that. So at this point, the Willem Dafoe character is the leader of the village, and he is uncontested, even though this guy wants to take the throne from him. And he's like, "Hey, this is my pet Virginia, and he can do all this stuff." And then here comes. Basically, I feel like the next big thing is when the princess is running away. And I miss some of the subplot with her because, again, they go back and forth. They talk about the Princess of Mars, and her name is...
Well, the fight scene erupts above them. So we get this thing that the red and the blue people are fighting each other, and that the Tharks don't care. They think that the green man, them, will inherit and kind of take over as the red and the blue kill each other off. The red being those from Barsoom, and the blue being those from Helium. Barsoom's princess is, of course, Dejah Thoris.
Okay, I'm down with that. So she is. I'll just call her Lynn Collins. That's what I'll call her because that's her name. There was an earlier scene where she's trying to convince her dad that the best way for them to win this war is through science. And he's like, nah, I got a better idea. We're just going to marry you off, and it's going to fix everything. And she's like, pass. And then she runs away, and then she's being chased. And in this chase, they're fighting in the air, and like the villagers are going, oh, this is the cool part. Let's bet on it to see who wins, the red or the blue. That's a good summary, right? So
that's a very concise summary.
I'm trying to explain this, and I'm like, okay, this is why people don't watch this movie. But again, it's a fun movie. I'm going to shy away from good.
The action in this is, I think objectively, it's not a good film. It's enjoyable. It's a popcorn film. Listen, it's 2020. We're in the middle of a pandemic. All sorts of insanity is going on around us at all times. Shut off your brain and watch 3 different tribes from Mars do battle and see, I think, honestly, a fantastic performance by Lynn Collins as Dejah Thoris. When Wonder Woman was going around and before Gal Gadot got the role, I thought Lynn Collins would have been superb Wonder Woman. Her performance as Dejah Thoris, I feel, is a really strong archetype for a woman hero. I mean, you have that first scene where John Carter, being the Southern gentleman that he is like, get behind me. And then she wrecks like 6 dudes with swords. And he goes, maybe I should get behind you. I thought that was a really nice touch. And she's a warrior princess like someone else I knew.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So, let me back up again. The language, there's a point where they're speaking in Martian, and then if you were any bit as good as Ben and learning Na'vi, you would have learned Martian by now, and you would be speaking it right to me fluently.
So one of our former staff members here at WWNT, who is now a recipient of the Walt's Legacy Award, he works for Disney Cruise Line, Adam Roth, can do that. And he's a much bigger super fan than I cannot, but he can. And I just want to say, when Ben was working here, I wrote a commercial in Navi, and he was nowhere to be found at that point in time. I had to write this commercial all by myself using Navi, and I still did not learn it. I don't even know if we ever aired it. It was Pandora the Explorer. That might be one that's lost to the vaults.
Lost to the ages.
Yeah.
Okay, so and you know, one of the things we talked about when we did Mars Needs Moms was the fact that like there's probably a difference between the Martian that they speak in Mars Needs Moms and the Martian that they speak in John Carter.
Which would have been
We won't get
nice.
into
They
that.
came out within a year of each other. It would have
Yeah.
been good, you know. A little what's that corporate buzzword? You work for one of those people. What do they always say?
Synergy?
Synergy. There it is. That's the one. You could have got a little synergy.
Well, I mean, you know, it could be it's like own Marvel Cinematic Universe sort of a situation, right?
The Mars Cinematic Universe. I mean, this whole thing with John Carter was supposed to launch at least a 3-movie series. Clearly, it did not. But this would have been the start of what they wanted to be another trilogy. They were looking for something because they saw pirates were stalling. And honestly, dear viewers, if I could give you more John Carter movies or you have to watch those last few pirates, which would you rather do? I haven't even seen. There's like 6 pirates, 5 pirates. I don't even know how many pirates
5.
there are anymore. There's 5.
No, there's
I don't
5.
think I've
Yeah.
watched anything at past 3. I mean, we could have had 2 more John Carter movies.
Coulda, but I mean, the first one had to do good, and it did not. So the princess is trying to get John to help her because she feels like, okay, this guy can jump crazy high. He's super strong.
Yeah.
I need this guy to help win my war. So
Yeah.
she's like, let me get this guy and bring him back. But you know, she's kind of been captured, and they give her to him as reward or some mess like that. And so then they decide he has to flee, right? So they have to flee the village because there's been some
So it
craziness
seems like
happening.
the Thark the Civil War was starting between Tars Tarkas and Tal. I actually can't pronounce Thomas Hayden Church. Tal Hajus. That was going on. So the other Thark who is with them, who is Sola, played by Samantha Morton, by the way, a 2-time Academy Award nominee. So they're not getting schlubs in these roles. They have a powerhouse cast. They go because Tars Tarkas knows that Sola's his daughter. He's not supposed to know that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. And then, of course, there's Woola, who goes with them everywhere, which is the best character in the movie. There should be Woola plush all over Disney World.
Well, you know what? We'll talk about that at near the end, because that's even bad movies seem to get IP in the parks and not John Carter.
None. There's none.
Right, exactly. So they have to run away. They're going to go away, and she's going to take him to this river, which is going to be his destiny. And then they're going the wrong way. Yeah, the river is, and so they're going the wrong way. Willis says, "Hey, this is not the way to the river is. This is the way to Helium." Sure. And so they're on their way there, and he's like, no, you tricked me. We're not really going to go do your thing. We're going to do my thing. Let's do my thing first, and then we'll think about your thing. So then, it's like me saying, hey, to my wife, hey, we're Star Wars for a 15th time. And then, if you want to do your thing, we can. I don't know. But right now he's wanting to go to the river, figure out what's going on, how to get back home. And so they head back there, and they find some wild and crazy, neat things at the river.
It feels very much like Pandora, to be honest. It feels that kind of glowy bioluminescence. There's a little bit of ancient native tone to it. It's a cool looking scene. Not much gets accomplished except for naming the planets and him figuring out that it's Mars. And also, Dejah betrays him again there.
Well, I mean, you know what? If it worked once, then, why not do it a couple times, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so here's the thing. At this point, there's a lot of thinking going on. They've had you
There is.
read. They've gone forward and backward in time. There's been narration. There's been some Civil
Yep.
War history. We've
Mm-hmm.
learned some stuff about the Native Americans. We've got to figure out this language. I mean, the names of all these folks. And then there's like the tall green people, and then there's the red-skinned people. And we're like, we're trying to figure out all this stuff. It's actually a pretty smart movie. Like, I mean, if I think about Edgar Rice Burroughs and I think about Tarzan, Tarzan's pretty
Yeah.
basic. It's the dude in the woods or in the jungle swinging on a vine. It's pretty basic. This is some heavy, thought-provoking stuff.
It was serialized. Pardon my terrible pronunciation of that, but it was, it was a serial. It was in the pulp magazines, so it was episodic. I think that if we ran back John Carter as a bingeable series on Disney Plus, people would eat it up. It's very episodic, and I think while we're saying it's a very smart movie, there's too much going on. It's trying to set up this whole world building, and honestly, they're thinking of 3 films. They probably crammed 3 films worth of storylines in this.
Yeah, okay. So it was an ambitious movie on top of everything else, is what you're telling me.
I think that's a huge point. Is it's an ambitious movie. It was Andrew Stanton showing off that, hey, I'm graduating. I'm moving up from being, this Pixar. Now, a lot of people say Pixar films are for kids. I think Pixar films are for absolutely everyone. And the ones that he directed and wrote especially are very smart films. So I think he was just trying to prove it to himself that he could go on and be an adult director. We saw that in Steven Spielberg's time throughout the DreamWorks years, where he's like, no, I make adult dramas now, Bridge of Spies, no more E.T. kind of thing. And I think it's a very ambitious project, and I think the ambition is probably what cost a lot of people their jobs.
Well, back to the story itself. So, like, they get to this room, and it's kind of explaining to them about these, like, how to, like, that it's not that he was transported to Mars, but he was transferred to Mars. So this is the first time we're getting kind of like an in-depth of like how he was how he got to Mars, right?
Yeah. So that is the first time on this watch that I kind of really paid attention to that, because, jumping around the film, in the fight scene in the end, in the scene before he gets transported back to Jasum, Earth, you figure out that somebody else is living as John Carter, and one of the Therns is living as John Carter. So he needed to get back there because that would kill his double. So that was the first time I really put that all together. Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, so his body has been basically frozen on Earth the entire time. And by the way, what a dorky thing for you to stop and say Jasum and then say Earth. Like, I mean, come on, dude. You are a super fan, aren't you?
I really do love this movie. Like, I wish I could say that it was sarcastic or like some hipster nonsense. I really and truly love this movie. It is one of my go-to pick-me-ups if I'm feeling down, because the action hits me just right. When I watch it with a critical eye, like I did this past time, I see some things. My wife pointed out that she thought Taylor Kitsch was really over the top like you did, and I started to notice that. I thought the score was phenomenal, and she said she thought that was also a little bit over the top. So I can see where people can, make their things, but it's genuinely something I adore. Like, I like this movie, and I think a lot of people, if you just want to shut your brain off for a little bit and immerse yourself, it's a good movie to put on.
Yeah. Well, and again, like, they could simply have said Mars and Earth and made this movie a little bit easier for me. But then again, you're learning as you go along, and you're learning, okay, it's Barsoom and it's Jasum, and they're teaching you as they're teaching John. And to me, that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, that's why I said it's a very smart movie, trying to figure out, well, okay, he didn't really transport, he just like shifted bodies. So what I was going to say was that when he was on Earth and he comes back, he's all stiff because he's basically that body's been frozen in time while he's been gone, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So this story takes place over, I think, like 30 years. There's 10 years he's 10 years time pass while he's on Mars, and then 10 years passes before he gets back there.
Gotcha.
And then, yeah, it's a lot.
So when they're on helium, that sounds like a problem. Helium? Anyway.
Yes, when they're on helium.
Right. Before they go there, and they're in this room, and it's kind of explaining everything. And she's got these glyphs, and she's trying to like get her sense of it. And you find out later she knew what it was, but she didn't want to tell him. Yeah. There are like 9 rays shooting off. And to me, I was like, that's sort of like 9 planets, but there aren't 9 anymore. Yeah. So, like, I mean, is that what we thought is like?
I think that's what it is. Yeah, I think you leave Pluto in at that point in time.
Well, as Disney fans, we always leave Pluto in. That's expected.
Absolutely.
But so
it's a rule.
They figure out everything here, and then they decide to go to helium, and they're going to again, correct me if I'm wrong, but they go back there to like explain everything to her dad.
The Tharks show up, and
that's right.
Get them there. They send Dejah back to her dad, and they said that we'll end this whole war. They're going to get married, and then John Carter once again is in the Civil War, where Tars Tarkas has been imprisoned by Thomas Hayden Church, Tal, last name unpronounceable, and so then we get this scene that is honestly really, really just Star Wars directly ripped off. For oh my god, I forgot which Star Wars, but for the fight
Attack
with
of the Clones.
No, the fight with Luke and the Wampa, or the my god, I'm sorry, it got
the Rancor.
Dad brain. The Rancor.
The Rancor.
The Rancor is.
Well, I was thinking
yes,
there was that whole Colosseum thing in Attack of the Clones where they're in a Colosseum there too.
Very much.
But I get what you're saying, because like, when Luke wins, then, I don't know. I get what you're saying, that there was like that connection.
When Robert Zemeckis was asked to direct this, he said, "No, thank you, George," referencing Lucas. Already mined that for all the good stuff. So it's very clearly in Hollywood that this was a huge influence on Star Wars. It's also a huge influence on Superman. Superman didn't used to be able to fly. He did used to be able to jump tall buildings with a single bound. So in the chat we were talking, John Carter's absolutely the first superhero. He is the beginning of the superhero, along with Tarzan, but it really goes to Edgar Rice Burroughs and his writing at that time.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. So you talked a little bit about the music.
Yeah, the score.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, do you like sit back and listen to the music every now and then? I mean, is that a thing you do? I mean, is it like, is it a soundtrack you own?
No, not for this film, but there is, and I don't know if anybody's done it on Deep in the Plush yet, but Tron Legacy, I will absolutely sit back and listen to that soundtrack. It is one of the great original soundtracks. But no, I have a tendency, so people don't know like that I'm just talking out of my rear. I did go to college for this. I was a communication mass media. I studied film. I was part of the film society in school. This is stuff that I really pride myself on knowing and being able to discuss. So when I'm watching a movie, and if I'm watching it just for enjoyment, I'm watching it just for enjoyment. But when you have me on a show like this, I'm going to watch it with a critical eye, and you can really see how well the score swells and it matches the action and the drama. Just it feels like it keeps you in the moment.
Yeah. So Michael Giacchino is the guy who did the music for this, and he did the music for Incredibles. So that's to me. This is very, very like cinematic music, but The Incredibles I would pick over this anytime. But he is incredibly talented. So many scores he's done, and he's only 53. Like, he's not. I mean, he hasn't been in the game that long, but he's done so many. Mission Impossible 3, Star Trek, Super 8, Star Trek Into Darkness. Obviously, we talked. I mean, he's done some Disney parks music. Like, he's the man.
Jojo Rabbit, Spider-Man, Far From Home, and so I just pulled up his IMDb while we're talking here. And even his upcoming, so he's scoring the new Jurassic World Dominion. He's scoring the Batman, and then he's scoring Who Framed Roger Rabbit 2, which now I just learned that that's a thing.
I will believe that when I see it. However,
Yeah, agreed.
we've been waiting for that one for a long time. But so yeah, his music is. I mean, that's definitely something that I thought was pretty amazing as well. So I'm glad we talked about that. So so there's the arena fight with the white apes. First time we've seen the white apes. They've talked about him before. There was a line where they were talking about how ugly he was earlier. I think it was Willa was talking about how ugly he was, and she said, "You're ugly, but you're beautiful." I love that line. But I mean, it was basically saying, "Hey, you're the greatest, but you're an ugly earth, whatever you are." So when he wins this little fight in the arena, then he's like, "Hey, y'all, I'm the new king. Come with me. We're gonna go kick some butt. At this wedding. Let's go." And they're like, "Yeah, we'll go with you." And then they go to the wrong place.
Well, that's how they kind of figure out that everything is wrong, is that they go to the wrong place and they realize that the Tharks have to fly to get there, and the Tharks don't fly.
Yeah.
They don't.
No, they don't fly. But they make an exception for John because he's awesome. They crash the wedding, they save the day. Everything's wonderful. He gets married, he gets down on one knee, he proposes. He's over the fact that his wife and daughter burned in some horrible army like thing. Yeah, exactly. Which we didn't even talk about, but there was that scene where there's like the whole burning bodies and he has to bury his wife and daughter. And again, very tragic.
It's a heartbreaking,
so tragic,
scene that does not fit at all. Like when he drops to his knees and the rings fall out of his hands, I'm like, this doesn't belong in this movie. This is not for here.
This is not for here.
It made me so irrationally
2020. Sad. This is not for here. Oh. I mean, you're not wrong. It's just like that's so well said. Yeah.
So gets married. So very happy.
He gets married. Yeah, he's very happy. Roll credits. It's great. Everything was fine. This is the perfect ending. Except
I agree with you. I feel like if we knew now what we knew then, if we knew then what we knew now, and we knew that post-credit scenes were going to become a huge thing, I think that you finish with the last little stinger as a post-credit scene, and then you could open the next movie with the whole getting out of the tomb business. But yeah, you're right. Should have rolled credits there.
But so he gets transported back to Earth, and then he is trying to. He desperately. There's again another tragic scene where it's like that his life has finally become perfect. It's everything he wanted, his perfect happiness, and he lost it, and he's trying to get it back desperately. He's like takes his 10-year-old frozen body and drags it over to this pedestal that looks like something out of the Fortress of Solitude from Superman, where it's supposed to have the amulet in it, and he just holds his hand on it and he's saying the words and hoping to be able to get back. And then, he basically talks, it's like this whole thing with narration about how he, you found all the gold and he took it back and he used that to try to, find a way back to Mars. And, and so then he talks about this mausoleum in his backyard, which can only be opened from the inside. And he tells his nephew in this book about, and that's why you need to guard it. And he's like, oh my gosh. And he runs out, gets to the mausoleum. And then there was something written at the top of it in, I assume, Latin.
It was Latin. It was intermundos, between worlds.
Yeah. So he goes and he puts his name into it. The thing opens up. And now we find out one of those Thorn? Is that what they're? Thorn, that's the one.
Yeah.
One of these thorns is behind him.
Wild thorn berries.
The wild thorn berries. Thank you. Don't mock me on this. Come on, man. I told you I'm having problems with the names. So he's gonna shoot, and then John Carter's surprise is behind him. There was a whole ploy to get Ned to open up to flush this guy out into the open so that he could get his amulet. And he's like, cool, I got the amulet now, Ned. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you for being bait. I got to peace out. I got to go back to Mars. Goes into
Hey, maybe
into the
write a
crypt.
book about me.
Yeah, goes into the crypt, takes the thing, puts it on his chest, says the words, gone.
Yeah.
Roll
Cool
credits.
logo.
Yeah, the logo that was the wrong logo, right? So when that's all
Yeah.
done, I'm like, maybe that should have, that should have been the end part. Like you said,
Yeah.
like that could have been that post credits thing where
Could have
we're
been
like,
your post
oh my
credits thing.
gosh.
Yeah.
Because what you want, if this was the only movie, is to see that he got back safely. Because again, everything has
Yep.
been such heartbreak for him along the way. You want to see that she's sitting there waiting for him, going like, "Where you been? You went to get milk like 10 years ago. I haven't seen you
Well, no,
since."
because the Thurn is living as John Carter. So that's the thing that doesn't get tied up. So when he goes back, that Thurn drops and loses its John Carter uh, visage that it has on. So that she's been living with the Thurn, which I don't know why, if the Thurn's goal was for her to die, it didn't just kill her. And the
So
next one
how
was
do you
supposed to
know
be
that?
it. He says it at some point in time. There's a brief conversation about it when we were talking about in that cave scene, or when the Thurn gets a hold of him and is walking through the market and is doing like all the different shape shifts. They explain it. The bad guy, he got caught monologuing. So
Mm. Well,
yeah,
I
and they
mean,
also
I've seen
explained
it.
it
What?
when the Thurn was disguised as Dejah and had Dejah. They were also kind of explaining what the plan would be then too.
So you're saying I need to go back and watch it a fourth time to get that part of it, because I still, I
I
did
mean,
not
if you
get
want
that
to watch it
watching
a
it the.
fourth time,
Yeah.
you have to watch a lot for Deep in the Plus. I don't know if you should be spending your time revisiting John Carter unless you really want to. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't take when you're picking out film to watch. You're watching a movie. Watch what you want to watch. Like, don't listen to just somebody from the Orlando Sentinel who said it might be a bad film. This is 51% on Metacritic. It actually is 66% on IMDb, so significantly higher on there than on Metacritic. I didn't get a Rotten Tomatoes. And for all what everybody wants to say that it didn't make money, it did make back its budget and then some. So it was a $250 million budget. It made $280 million worldwide. So not
Yeah.
the huge flop that they lead you to believe.
Well, I mean, the flop comes in the fact of what they estimated this was going to be. So when they're laying out their
Yeah,
budget and they say, we think this is going to make 3 times this. And so
yeah.
then they go to do it and they just make their money back. We look at it as it's not a
Mhm.
loss. They look at it as, we had estimated everything we were going to do, every movie we were going to make, every cast member we were going to hire, everything for the rest of this
Mm-hmm.
year, out on the fact this movie is going to make 3 times what it cost, and then it didn't. So they don't really, like you said, they don't really lose the money. It's not that much of a flop, but it's not the movie they anticipated being. The same thing happened with, again, you kind of hated on it earlier, The Lone Ranger. It basically made its budget back, so it wasn't this huge flop, but it still lost $450 million off of what they had anticipated and counted on.
Yeah.
When it comes to the budgets, it is a little bit weird that way. You want a
Well,
movie like Frozen where you spend 140 some odd million on it and make $1 billion. That's what you want.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what the hope is always. I mean, if you look at the 3 tentpole releases for Disney Pictures, it was a really bad time. 11 was our previous episode, Mars Needs Moms. 12 was this, and 13 is The Lone Ranger. Those were the big tentpole releases, and just getting crushed. And, probably a lot of people did deserve to lose their jobs over that. Um, these were
Yeah.
expensive films, and they eventually made a little bit back, but, you gotta stick the landing, I guess. I don't think they did with John Carter. I watched it and I can see how people didn't really connect to it. You need so much information going into it. When I went into it, I went in after reading this book about the movie getting made and then checking out a few of the novels. The novels are incredibly hard to read, and content warning, there is a lot of racism in there. They're written in the early 1900s, so just be aware. But you know about these characters, and you kind of know the history, and you've seen how much this influences, and you can go and have an appreciation for what this movie should mean. And it's 100 years in the making. The books were first released in 1912. It came out in 2012, and I think it's every bit the spectacle it deserves to be. I can still see where it did need some improvement, though.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about the parks briefly. There's no sign of this, to my knowledge, in the parks. Even the Lone Ranger got a plastic boot full of root beer float or frozen root beer at Pecos Bills. So this got nothing that was a park tie-in that I know of.
There were Vinylmation.
There's your synergy being missed.
Yeah, there was Vinylmation. I never saw any pins. I've looked for pins. I don't know if I've seen a pin. I mean, even Tomorrowland got a pin. But yeah, I mean, Lone Ranger, didn't they also have that thing briefly, or is that another Pirates thing that was in the back of Hollywood Studios over there?
No, that was Pirates.
All right. I don't know. It was something terrible Johnny Depp did, and that's a long list. So
all right.
I realize
let's not talk Johnny
as soon
Depp
as I
on this
said
episode.
that.
Let's not talk Johnny Depp tonight. This is bad timing for Johnny Depp. Yeah. So again, I think that, we've talked about this for a long time tonight. We've talked about, this is a long time coming for us in this movie, to review this movie. This is your movie. So I'm going to ask you the question. We know you like it, but Patrick Hackett, would you recommend this movie?
I would absolutely recommend this movie. I think you have to go into it with the right mindset, like I was saying before. So look at this as influencing Superman, as influencing Star Wars, as influencing Indiana Jones, because there's bits of those characters all over this film. And I think everybody can find something they like. I watched it a little bit. Now, my daughter is 16 months old. She can't really get it. But I watched a little bit in bed with her, and I saw, how great it would be to show her Dejah Thoris as she gets older, because I think it's a strong character that, obviously influences a lot of other pop culture. Shut your brain off. Enjoy this movie. It's an action spectacle. Ignore some of the wonky parts. And if you like those wonky parts, great. But if you're looking for a solid, 6.5, 7-star film to get you through a rainy winter day, this is a great choice.
Okay, so here's my thing about it is that I've kind of been a fan of this movie, and I've recommended it over time. So I would definitely recommend this movie for several reasons. One is I think there were a slew of movies like we talked about that were worth a look that didn't get a look. But I think Lone Ranger, I think Tomorrowland, I think Tron Legacy, I think Prince of Persia. All those movies happened around the same time. All those movies missed their mark by a bunch, and I think a lot of it's because they couldn't explain to the audience what it was you were about to see and give your money for, because it was all different IP. Nobody was used to the John Carter IP. I mean, there were super fans like yourself. Yeah. There were people that know some of the source material, but most people didn't understand what they were going to see. Same with Prince of Persia. Same with Tron Legacy. I mean, these are movies that they were based on IP, but they weren't relevant IP at the time. And so I think that they just really missed their mark. So what I love about this movie too, is it's a great opportunity with Disney Plus to watch something that you don't have to pay for separately, that you can dip your toe in and see what you think of it, that you like it. And it's really one of those things where I feel like it's a hidden gem. This is what I wanted to do when I started Deep in the Plus, is to find movies like this that you're missing because you bought this from Mandalorian and all these Marvel shows that were going to be there that aren't there yet. I
can't wait for WandaVision.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But we should have had WandaVision already. We should have had Winter Soldier already. Yeah. I don't know if you guys are experiencing it where you are, but there's a pandemic here. So I don't know if you heard about it or not.
There's plenty of time to watch Disney Plus.
Amongst all the other things it's doing, it's messing up my content, man. It's making it hard to get good content out there. So I think that's why movies like this.
Yeah, I think that's why what you do here is so important. Is you get people from WWNT, and they're usually talking about a movie they're passionate about, or you're forcing them to watch something ridiculous, and the entertainment value is in the badness of it. But there's a lot of this. Nobody should watch Fuzzbucket. Um, if you want to like check out Tron Legacy is a great movie. If you want to stop watching Tomorrowland 2/3 of the way through the movie, you have a fantastic film. Just stop it there. There's no reason for House and George Clooney to have a fist fight.
Oh, spoiler! Come on. Yeah, I was watching a thing on what?
I love
Say it.
Tomorrowland, but that ending is horrible. It is just out of left field and bad.
I've been accused of liking to like things, and that's maybe a little bit hard, which is why I like having a guest on like you who can be a little bit more critical because, I enjoy Disney fandom. I enjoy things that Disney puts in front of me. When we were at D23 and they rolled this out with a whole bunch of things. And even the year previous, when they rolled all these things out, I was like, that's going to be a hit. That's going to be a hit. That's going to be a hit. And it was like the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol, womp, womp. It had all the makings that it should have been great. Robert Zemeckis, and it's just the stop action was creepy, like we talked about with Martin's Needs Moms. Then not stop action, the mocap. So then you've got movies like this one and like just so many that Oz Great and Powerful, like movies that just looked like they were going to be just blockbusters, and they were just not. So I'm glad we talked about this one, man. And it's been, like I said, a long time coming. I appreciate you suffering through some technical difficulties, and thank you guys that have been with us. We appreciate you. We appreciate our WIGS members who are with us. If you want to learn more about the WIGS program, go to patreon.com/WDWNT. Go to Carousel Products and buy some cool stuff. I'm very excited about that Rise of the Resistance shirt. I don't know if you've seen it yet or not.
I saw the Rise of the Resistance shirt, but I've not been on Rise, and I don't know when I'm going to get my chance. So I'm like, I have the Secret Swiss bobsled training facility. Obviously, I have the new WDWNT shirt. I didn't grab the pins because I thought I had some of those somewhere, but there's a lot of great products on there. And I still have my original WDW News Tonight shirt with Nicholas Cicero. So,
wow, okay, that's a hard flex right there. I've talked about this before with our WIGS fans. Is the CarouselProducts.com stuff is stuff that we do because we're fans of it and we buy it ourselves, and we want them to like it too. So a little bit of a sales pitch here, but at the same time, it's not something we don't believe in. And then next week I'm supposed to have Mr. Tom Corliss on, and we're supposed to be kicking off the holiday season by talking about Disneyland through the seasons. So.
Oh man, this is something I haven't got into on Deep in the Plus yet for myself, man. The park stuff on there is great. Tyler's done some great stuff with it, and I can't wait to see what Tom's going to say about that.
Well, let's hope that's the case again. Thank you guys for the likes. Thanks you for the subscribes. Thanks for the super chat earlier for our for our technical difficulties. We do appreciate it. We appreciate you. We appreciate you spending time with us on a Tuesday night. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Patrick Hackett. As always, you're amazing.
Thank you.
We will see you on Park Center tomorrow night, man. I'm very excited about that too.
Spoiler. Yep, absolutely.
Spoiler.
Very excited.
Patrick. All right. Have a great night, guys.